You ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn, hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a boot? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 70th episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, part of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Daz, and I'm joined today, as always, by Mystic. Mystic, how's your week been, bud? How's things going?
Not bad, not bad.
Been playing a lot of HOTS? What you been up to?
Yeah, there have been some HOTS. I've been just practicing a little bit and playing around with the new Sonya and Medivh. Or not Medivh, Medivh.
The completely
very
different than
similar
Medivh.
names.
They both start with M, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they've got a V and an E in there too, I guess. But we've also got on the show today Rozai. Roz is a writer for Trolls.gg, and he's, I guess we can say, a frequent guest on the show now. I think this is your third or fourth time being on the show, Roz.
Yeah, I think fourth. I think yeah.
You're officially auditioning for LiQuiD spot. LiQuiD couldn't make it this week, so Roz decided to graciously hop on in. Roz covers a lot of esports for the hero scene for the Trolls.gg site, so we figured it was fitting considering we just had a Western Clash last week, and you've been watching that, I assume, Roz?
Yeah, every single game. Pretty much every day I woke up at 4 o'clock. Sometimes I just couldn't hack it, and I woke up at 6. But I managed to either go back and watch the VODs or catch them live. So it was an awesome weekend.
You're really following the LiQuiD playbook by getting up early and making sure you catch everything. I like it. So I ponied up for an ultra wide monitor. I decided I needed that extra edge in Heroes of the Storm, so I went for a 21:9 aspect ratio monitor. I'm playing on it, and oh my gosh, it makes so much difference. I can't believe how much more you can see. I feel like I'm cheating. I don't know if this is fair or not. I feel like there should be black bars on the side, so I can't do something like this. But hey, it's been a nice luxury to have. The only kind of confusing thing is the distance between my mini-map and where I have to choose my talents is really far away. So I've got to wrench my mouse all the way over. I guess I got to get used to playing with a higher sensitivity or something on my mouse. Either you guys tried playing on an ultra-wide monitor before? Do you consider it cheating too? I guess that's the real question. Am I a cheat in your guys' eyes?
I don't think I've ever played on a super ultra wide monitor, but I mean, if it lets you see more, then yeah, it's a little cheating. But I mean, you have to, like you said, you have to slide that mouse across and maybe like turn your head or something to see something that you'd be able to see very easily on like a small monitor.
I've begun to understand why the pros bring their keyboards and mice, but the monitors are always supplied to them because they obviously don't want everyone coming in with like super like extra wide. Maybe there's even like ones that are higher aspect ratio than mine, just really, really wide ones you can see like core to core. So I guess that's why they. Yeah. Well, it almost feels like that sometimes in this thing. You can definitely see easily, especially the camera zooming out even further now. Past gate to gate, it's almost you can see like fort to fort. It's pretty intense. Anyways,
wow.
Don't want to bog the show down too much on the discussions of how I've become a cheat in the game. So let's move along and thank our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg. If you're looking for a way to support the show, you can always do so over there. And we've got a troll of the week this week. This is across the Trolls.gg network, so we share it with Troll and HGC. And the Troll of the Week is Cavalier Guest. Cavalier Guest has been on the show a couple times, and a couple weekends ago, he actually cast Creators of the Storm, the round-robin phase, and he's also the coach of GFE. So we just wanted to give Cavalier Guest a shout-out, an extra thanks for doing Creators of the Storm, and he's a great caster, great supporter of content creators in the community, and one of the original content creators in the community as well. So thanks, Cav. So if you're watching this show live, you may have noticed that our layout's a little bit different. Don't worry, audio listeners, you're not missing too much here, but you can obviously catch the VODs later if you want. And the reason for this is we're actually going to try a new format today. We've pretty much had the same format for our show since episode 0, even before episode 1. But what we're going to try today, and we're going to see how it works out, and it might be a colossal failure, and we'll go back to the old format, or maybe it's a great one, we'll stick with it, is a Pardon the Interruption style show. So if you haven't seen Pardon the Interruption, it's an ESPN sports show for like real sports ball, where they actually have multiple topics that they only can talk about for a limited period of time. The idea is you've got like 3 to 5 minutes or whatever it is to talk really quickly about those topics before you move on to the next one. So you got to really make your points quick and get them in as fast as you can. So we've collated 8 topics for today's show that we're going to go over, and those are going to be part of the Pardon the Interruption, or Trolling the Nexus segment is what we're going to end up calling it. But before we get into that, we are still going to do the news, and we're still going to have Mystic's Shakedown near the end. So we're going to keep those consistent. I'll have to talk to LiQuiuD to see if he wants to do an esports corner prior to this, but a lot of those will typically be covered in our actual Troll in the Nexus segment. So before we get into that, though, let's start with the news.
Someday, this will make a great story.
So like I said, we're going to keep our news segments a little bit lighter, too, because a lot of the news we're just going to cover in the Pardon the Interruption portion of the show. So the one thing I did want to point out is that Bush League is around the corner. Now, Bush League is a beer league, Heroes of the Storm League, that we're doing alongside with the Gank Bush squad. They actually spearheaded this initiative. What it's going to be is it's going to be 4, maybe 6 teams, depending on how much interest we get, where every team is captained by a show host, and then filled up with listeners for the 2 shows. We're going to be mixing and matching show listeners across the teams. It's going to be Monday nights starting around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Depending on how many teams we get, it'll go probably a little about 11 o'clock or so. Just one game week, very casual, no scrims, nothing like that. Just show up and have fun. So if you're interested, reach out to us. You can reach out to me at DazHot. You can also catch me in Discord too. Trolls.gg/Discord is the best place to get our information for the Discord server. Just message me there. There's lots of people there you can talk about too, and we'll get the teams together probably in the coming couple weeks. I'd say we're going to get started. We've also got casters and everything lined up too, so it's going to be almost like a little bit of our mini chair league or NGS. Roz, I mean, you've done chair league before. I think you might be participating in Bush League. Are you going to be doing this with us?
Oh yeah, of course.
Are you excited? I mean, I've been waiting so long for Chair League to start up. Ironically, they just announced they're starting their new season the end of March. But that's kind of what started this all. I know Fringe over at Gangbush Squad was getting a little bit frustrated, being like, "Hey, we're gonna put in a Chair League team," and telling his listeners back in like maybe December or January, being like, "When's Chair League gonna start?" And then we just decided, like, well, why don't we just do this on our own? It's just a casual thing, anyways. So. Are you going to be going to Chair League again, Roz? I know Mystic's going to, but are you going to go back to Chair League again this season?
Maybe. I might be looking for a new team for this season, so we'll see.
Lords of the X-Star are breaking up? Is that what's happening here?
No, everybody's just off in their own worlds. We've had children being born and computers exploding, so
so no juicy roster apocalypse
for now.
No juicy roster apocalypse news, eh? And Mystic, have you guys already signed up for the new Chair League season? Are you sticking in Div 3, I guess, or are you guys moving up a division?
Yeah, we've already signed up for Chair League, and I think we are going in Div 3. We're gonna try to get to the top of Div 3 though. So we'll see where we end up.
We'll be rooting for you. What's your team's name?
I think it was 3D2G.
Nice. I assumed it was the same one as last time that you guys had. I can't recall it. It was off the top of my head, but we'll be rooting for you regardless. Okay, so that being said, that's the news segment. We're gonna try this, and this is our first run around with this, so hopefully it'll go smoothly. But we're gonna try again this Pardon the Interruption style bit. So we're gonna have 5 minutes to talk about all the different topics. The topics we're gonna talk about today, I'm gonna go over them as we go through, just a quick rundown of each one before we start the 5 minutes. But we're going to start with the Western Clash discussion. So before we do that, I've got a quick little bumper. I gotta go to Fiverr and get a really good one for this one, but a quick one anyways. Here we go.
If you keep feeding this troll, I'm just gonna keep coming back.
Okay, so we're going to start Trolling the Nexus, starting with Western Clash Impresses. It was an impressive event. It took place last weekend. Roz watched every single minute. Myself and Mystic, we caught the highlights and watched the odd games. But let's talk about this. We've got 5 minutes, and Roz, you've got the ball. Tell us about your impressions of the Western Clash.
And I just put a article out this past Monday, kind of going over all this as well. So you can check that out on the website. But I haven't enjoyed a LAN event this much since Midseason Brawl from last year, and that grand final is now my new favorite grand final, replacing the Fnatic Dignitas grand final from last year's Midseason Brawl. I think that this Western Clash did more to advance like our understanding of the matchups in NA and EU more than ever before, and this was like the first time that like first of all that NA competed on a decent level with EU, so it was really fun to see because that hasn't happened since 2016.
Now that last series, I had to go back and watch the VODs just because of everyone talking about it so much. But coming down to that last altar after a comeback on Towers of Doom, one of my favorite comeback maps, that was phenomenal. And Dignitas didn't stomp over everyone as was expected too. They had a bit of a run from their money from Zealots, as well as dropping other maps in those series leading up to the finals as well.
I mean, I caught a few games here and there, but I was actually really surprised to see NA do that well. Because going into the Western Clash, I was like, man, Europe's a pretty strong region. They're just going to destroy NA, except for maybe Tempo Storm. And Tempo Storm did show up pretty well, actually. But there were other NA teams that took games off of other European teams. So I was not expecting that at all. And Tempo Storm went all the way to, I guess it was the winners finals, and then they dropped down to losers, and Zealots showed up. So
was this a failure for EU, even though they won it? And I mean, even though it was an all EU final, like, would you consider this a failure? Because like, it's rare that NA would even usually be able to pick up a series, let alone do as well as they did.
Well, here's the problem. So like it's hard. You have to put like a giant asterisk on anything that EU did this weekend, and to another extent, anything that NA did, because of Fnatic. They played with a sub. Quacknix went home before anything even started on day one because he had a viral infection, and they got in Sonic LeBeast, who's a Grandmaster European player. He's like Grandmaster number 1 and 2. He goes back and forth with Snitch constantly. But as great of a player as he was, and as much as he impressed everybody with his play, you know, it's at that level, any failing in coordination or communication matters a lot. And so Fnatic in the earlier stages seemed okay, but as it got later into the tournament, they just didn't look like their normal selves. So it wasn't going to cut it against the higher performing teams in the tournament.
That was one of the storylines coming out of this too. I can't recall the sub's name, but he did impress. And do you think he's impressed enough to potentially even get a roster spot next time Roster Apocalypse happens?
I mean, you know, it was kind of interesting because he's never. He doesn't. Not only has he never played on a professional team, but he's never really even watched professional esport Heroes of the Storm. Period. And so, like, they were joking that like they were going around and you know, here comes Mene and JPL and all these guys, and they're like, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." And it's not like a like, oh my gosh, here's the greatest players in the world, not being starstruck. He just literally didn't know who these people were, and so he couldn't really care less. And so he just showed up and played. And you know, so you know, who knows, maybe he drank the Kool-Aid and he wants to stick in it. I think it'd be pretty cool because he, you know, because even though things didn't turn out well in the end, I mean, he had a great start to the week, so he must have enjoyed it for sure.
I honestly think that's like the best kind of mindset that you should have, because, you know, you don't want to be starstruck by your opponents. You don't want to be like psyched out by them, like, oh, here comes like KSV or whatever team he's on now, like Rich, and you're just like, he's just another player, you know. It's like you could essentially maybe beat this guy if you played your best, but, you know, sometimes maybe not. But, you know, I know this one League of Legends streamer, Doublelift, and there are times where he plays without nameplates on, so he doesn't know who he's up against. So, you know, he just goes, I'm just going to play against them, you know, like fine-tune my my play to their play style and then beat them no matter who they are. And, you know, so I think that's a good mindset, honestly.
Perfect. And because this is the Pardon the Interruption style show, that's the end of that segment. So we're going on to NA Lull is our next segment here. First off, I don't even know what the lull stands for. Again, this is probably me. Why isn't it LOL? That's why I want to know. But you know what? Let's give the ball over to Roz. Roz, why don't you start talking about NA Lull? Why don't you first explain what this meme is about so old fogies like me can understand it?
I mean, like I said earlier, like NA has never really competed not against EU, period, in Heroes of the Storm. Not at least since the glory days of 2016, but really in all of esports in general. Most of the North American teams just rarely fail to compete against. Or they always fail to compete against, especially the Koreans, and so really globally we have a hard time just competing in esports, but especially in Heroes of the Storm. I think I kind of put some arguments into my article this week that maybe we're getting closer, and North America's gap with EU is starting to lessen a little bit, and it may be time to retire that, but it's probably still far away.
Yeah, I mean, I think NA really surprised, even just right out of the gate in the first round of games, the first 4 series that were played. EU and NA had an even split. NA won 2, EU won 2. Prior to this, I don't think NA's won very many rounds at all, like in these international events. So that was a big surprise. And not only that, like Team Freedom ended up going right into the winners, semifinals or whatever you call it, right before the finals, where they got knocked out into relegation, and then they ended up getting kicked out of the tournament before they got to the finals. But no one was expecting anyone to go. Is Tempo Storm the NA hope this year, like Roll 20 was during BlizzCon?
So here's why I think Tempo Storm just surprises everybody, period. He's one of the most interesting they're one of the most interesting teams to watch, period, and for me. And one, because this is the first time really that a superstar team, where they just take the best players from all the teams and just smash them together and see what happens. This is really the first time that it's been successful. Most of the time, because you've got so many big personalities, it's hard to manage that. And it seems good on paper, but it really doesn't, work. And when you put these 5 guys together, suddenly you have 3 of the most scary, mechanically skilled players in North America who are capable at really doing just about anything. It's almost like they have 3 flex players. And it reminds me of when Gale Force claimed to be 4 flex and a healer, but they're actually pulling it off, and really, really well. And the fact that they can do like an all melee composition, treating Ragnaros as the ranged, just surprises everybody. And between Fan, Glaurung, and Psalm, they have the flexibility in their drafting to just do whatever feels good. They've said this a number of times, is that they don't necessarily always have an explicit plan. They just go with what Psalm thinks will feel right for this moment, and then they go with it, and they usually get rewarded. And that's in the end what you should be doing.
So now, does it seem like there's a better culture almost in the NAHGC scene in terms of professionalism, having like more coaches, having that kind of like structure in place? It almost seems like people are taking it a lot more seriously than they did last year as well. I mean, I remember talking about this in depth last year about how EU and Korea in particular had that culture ingrained where they'd have coaches and regular scrim times and everything really well set up, put a lot of prep work in, whereas it seemed like NA wasn't taking the games as seriously. But that seems to be shifting, and maybe is that one of the big reasons too that NA seems to be catching up to EU here?
I'll just say this was the first tournament that I've seen since watching Heroes of the Storm that North America has gone into face EU and not used cheese to try and steal games off of them. Like, no Lost Vikings bullcrap. Like, they just went in and they played strong games. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about. They have coaches. They have the discipline now. They're still catching up on mechanical skill, and they'll get there. But now they're able to team fight and macro even some of the best teams. Tempo was out macroing just about every European team this weekend, and it was really impressive.
And do you expect this to rise? Like, do you think by the time BlizzCon comes around, are we looking at NA even catching up with the EU? Are we close? Or are we still far out?
I'm sure that there'll be another roster apocalypse between some of the middle to low tier teams, but like the results of last year's roster apocalypse like have obviously achieved good things, and everybody is now in scenarios where they can do their best. So I think it's good.
Cool. Next topic is the stale professional meta. So just looking at some of the stats from the Western Clash specifically, you look at the top picks. We've got Tyrael, Malf, Blaze, Uther Greymane, Genji, Stukov, Tracer. Like that's pretty much 90% of the picks, at least before the mid bans. That feels a little stale because a lot of it makes the drafts a little bit boring for the first half, and it takes a while to get into the exciting part of the drafting process. Is this a problem? Is this okay? I mean, we had Tarantula in chat here saying that one of the reasons that NA did so well is because EU was letting Medivh through and didn't respect the Medivh as much as maybe they should have. So what's going on here in the professional meta? Are we stuck in a spot where it's too few heroes? Do we need more, or is it just right?
I think if you look at a lot of the heroes that are being picked, like Malf recently had a rework. Medivh is a really new hero. Blaze is pretty new. Tyrael just had a rework. A lot of those are just like, in my opinion, I believe to be power creep, where they are given a lot of stuff and Blizzard like hasn't toned them down a little bit yet, or don't plan to tone them down. So there's always that. And then the other ones we got like Tracer, Genji, Stukov, Uther. Those are heroes with like very solid kits. Tracer just does a lot of damage with that pulse bomb. Very good at assassinating people. Genji, hypermobility. Uther is just solid. Like he has a lot of CC and the healing.
Yeah, and what do you think, Roz?
I tend to get less upset about meta changes, particularly in the pro scene, because it rarely has implications for what we do on a general daily basis. Like because for them, single games matter more than like the hundreds of games that we're playing, and so so they're always going to be executing at the highest levels and trying to pick the heroes that will help them execute that. And I try to just think about it in a large macro sense, because like what frustrates me is people going into every single week of league play. They're like, well, why didn't the meta change from last week? Well, why didn't the meta change from last week? Well, it's like, well, let's think back to 2 months ago. If you were to ask me, hey, is Tyrael going to be a first ban priority? I wouldn't have said yes. And it's just, you have to just be patient with gradual change. And one thing that's interesting from this past weekend is Lucio was played once, and he was the top tier complaint from a few weeks ago. And so like things are changing. They just don't necessarily move at the pace that people expect them to, but that's not how life works.
Which is crazy to think about it, because like you said, like it's changing every few weeks with constant patches coming out and reworks coming out. Everything changes completely, and it's just because everyone will look at an individual tournament as like this little microcosm for like what they think like the meta is, and it may be consistent for that one tournament, but like you said, from tournament to tournament, from week to week, it does change quite drastically. Mystic, you played a lot of League of Legends in your day. I imagine it got a lot staler in a game like that as opposed to Heroes, where I feel like maybe we've been spoiled with the rapid rate of reworks and hero releases and just meta shifts.
Yeah, for metas to change, it's not, hey, has the meta changed yet? It's, has something changed the meta yet? Like, it's going to be the same until something stronger comes around, or some like counter that nobody's ever thought of. People bring that in and just put it on the meta, then it's going to change. Like, we got Blaze Tyrael, right? Unless something comes in or somebody thinks of a strategy that counters them more effectively, then the meta is probably not going to change, and those two are going to stay the strongest.
And I have to kind of draw like a comparison to card games, and like here in Hearthstone. Like in those types of games, when you release a card set, for us that's a patch that happens every 2 weeks. For them, it happens every couple months, and there's like a time frame where people have time to develop counters to things. But for us, we receive changes every week or so, and the game is adjusting for us, is adjusting the meta for us, and we get less intellectual time to dig in there and find our own changes, at least on the casual level. The professionals are doing this every single day. They're always constantly adapting, but the general public isn't necessarily always doing that.
And that's just winding down time. There we are. So let's go on to the next topic here, which is called pumping the brakes on hero releases, because it's been a while since we've got a new hero. February 6th to be exact, which I think it's almost 30 days ago now. This is probably the longest break we've had ever since I started playing the game. Blizzard started talking like maybe a year or two ago about how they wanted to have new heroes out every 3 to 4 weeks, and they more or less have stuck to that schedule. So now that we've got 77 heroes in the game, it sounds like things are going to be slowing down a little bit. Mystic, I know we already drawn some comparisons to League of Legends with their huge hero pool, and obviously you gotta slow down at some point. Is this the time, Mystic?
I think League started slowing down at around the 100 hero or champion, however you want to call it, mark.
Hero.
Well, I mean, hero over here, champion over there. So
it's hero everywhere.
Anyway, so I don't know. I'm kind of sad that they're slowing down and releasing less heroes. In League, when they slowed down to release less heroes, they released more reworks, and basically the reworks were more or less the different champions with the same kind of like story or whatever. Like they'd have a hero or champion, and then they change it up. Their abilities are all different, but it's like the same person. So it's basically like a new hero. And here Blizzard is like keeping the core theme of things, but they're just changing like different things here and there with their reworks, like talents and stuff. So
yeah, and they talked about this at BlizzCon a little bit, that they would be doing this, and I'm fine with it. I think they've realized, especially after doing like the 2018 gameplay changes, that there's enough that they could be doing with what we have now to just improve the game that we have, improve the heroes that we have. There's still some heroes, Raynor, that are very outdated, and really, people laugh that Sonya didn't really need a rework because she's already strong, but she still had a lot of old talents even after her last rework. So I think it's a good thing. One thing that you want to do when you're assessing issues is fix the issues that are there before you add more variables to the equation, and then that possibly add more issues. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, it feels like we're getting close to that kind of Goldilocks spot where you've got not too many heroes, not too few heroes. It's just right. And then when you get to that point, that is where you probably want to see more reworks as opposed to new heroes, because if you doubled the amount of heroes we had now, I feel like there'd just be too many to know them all in depth or as well as you'd need to. And that's awfully intimidating. Can you imagine starting a new account with 150 heroes on the roster and try to grind the gold to get all of them? I mean, we've all been playing the games, since beta or since the game released. So we've got all the heroes and we've gathered them over time, but having to start over again, that's got to be a daunting task for a new player to be like, who do I pick? I don't even know. But I like to see these reworks, and I think that's the best way to keep the game fresh, constantly balanced, constantly rework heroes, maybe rework that Raynor finally.
Eventually.
Yeah. Yep.
So do you guys think we're in the sweet spot, or do you think we need more? I mean, there's been talk even about 3 bans. I know that's been a big topic of conversation recently about potentially bringing 3 bans aside into competitive play and maybe trickle down into the game as well for us plebs, because there's just enough heroes that you can necessitate that. Are we getting close to that point? What do you guys think about the way that we're at?
I think that one of the big focuses should be, and Trent talked about how you can't really support choke right now, and you really can't. It's impossible. But I think part of the reason why people feel that they can is because there's so many healers that are not viable as solo healers, um, and and I'm not going to get into that whole conversation, but like they recognize it with Medivh, with Ana, that there's an issue with their current role system and classifying healers like this and how they perform. At some point, Blizzard has to get to a design mentality that they design heroes in the way that the game works, rather than designing heroes the way that they dream that it might work. Because eventually they need to start designing heroes with the idea that they are going to be a dedicated solo laner, or that they're going to be a dedicated jungler, or that they're a dedicated solo healer. I don't necessarily think that when the game was being developed at the beginning that those goals were in mind. There was this sort of mishmash of, there's so many different tanks that don't necessarily tank.
It's interesting because I feel like that's like the complete opposite of the way that they do consider hero design currently. I feel like they have their big wall of 200 plus heroes they've been working on, and they'll be like, okay, well, we're gonna put Medivh into the Nexus. How would Medivh work, right? And then they play test it, they iterate on it, and see how it goes. But it'd be interesting to see if talk to a game developer and see if they work from the other way. If they say, okay, these are the game mechanics we want to put into the game, what hero from our lore or Overwatch, Warcraft, what have you, would be able to fit that side of things. But anyhow, we've run out of time for that topic, so moving on to the next one. Spin to win with Sonya. So since Sonya's rework, she was on the PTR last week when we talked, but now that she's live, people are saying, at least in our level leagues, that she's hella strong now. She got a bump in win rate by 5.1%. She's at 55.5, so she's pretty strong, and I've been seeing a lot of strong Sonyas in play over the past couple of days. So, Mystic, why don't we give you the ball to start off here? What do you think of the new Sonya?
I think she's just stronger than old Sonya. They just took a bunch of her talents and like kind of combined them together. Like one of them, Battle Rage, you got Merc damage, you got a heal, and then I don't know. I think some of her talents are like overloaded talents, as in they do a lot of different things. It's not just like almost like one talent where it's like, hey, it buffs one ability. No, it gives you like all these things that you can do. She's just overall like old Sonya, but a little bit better in team fights, and she has a little bit of range now, and with her spear, and if you take the I think it's the slam talent, or something, that you can have a little bit of range on that.
The crazy thing is, if at level 1 you end up taking Tough as Nails, her win rate goes up to 64.1%. So I feel like her win rate's probably going to shoot up because people haven't found the optimal build. And as soon as people start to realize this, if Tough as Nails is as strong as it seems, which I don't think we really necessarily expected when we first started talking about Sonya last week, but it feels really powerful. And we didn't think it was going to, because the old block, you got a charge of block every 5 seconds. It's the same 75% physical armor that you'd get for the next incoming auto attack. Now it's 12 seconds, but if you're constantly using your abilities, it recharges faster based on her trait. So you can get it down to every 4 seconds, and it holds 3 charges instead of 2. So I guess those changes have mitigated enough extra damage to make her that much stronger. I mean, it's 5 to 4 seconds. I guess that's 20% right there, right? That you're getting more block charges, so that's 20% extra damage mitigation, I guess. What do you think, Roz?
What if a hero was immune to every auto attack that you throw at them?
I even before it. First of all, Sonya has always been one of my favorite heroes, even from her old incarnations. Now she's better than I think she's ever been. Before this rework, I think she had like really, with very little variation, like maybe 1 or 2 viable builds. Even before, I never really took War Paint because me personally, I never felt like I needed it because if you are good at tying your survivability into Whirlwind and you're good at stutter stepping, which you need to be, then you don't necessarily need it. So I naturally gravitated towards the tough as nails talent, which is busted. And you get a heal on demand at level 4. You don't necessarily need something as something like War Paint. I don't know how all of her Seismic Slam talents are. I don't necessarily know that all of them are good. I know that level 4 talent is really strong. I'm building into the Mystical Spear stuff right now, and the cooldown reductions and the range increases and stuff like that. And of course, varying for the situation, but she feels really nice, and there's a lot of thought that you can put into each of her talent tiers that you did not have to do before.
It also feels like Sonya is a lot stronger in the early game than she used to be. You used to say, okay, once she gets 16, level 20, her survivability goes way up. But with that level 4, Battle Rage, right, where you get the 3 charges, 10% heal, the new block talent being a little bit stronger, it feels like that survivability comes early, and you can do the 2v1s, 3v1s as Sonya, survive through all of it, surprisingly so, and still come out on top too.
I think that another good thing is I think the new Battle Rage is really cool, and I think that's a cool way to make these PvE centric talents actually have value for PvP. That way, you just don't have people thinking that, oh, I picked this PvE talent, so I'm just going to go tunnel vision my way into not dealing with the team and only doing merc camps. I think that's a really good incentive to actually participate. So that's good. Since they changed Poison Spear, which you used to take by default, I don't know the math on it yet, but it doesn't feel as strong, obviously, as it used to, unless you know that you're going to go into Wrath of the Berserker. Then maybe you take it. But if you're looking for more flexibility down the road, then maybe you go for Life Funnel or Shot of Fury, which seems really, really strong.
Crazy strong Sonya. Get your games in with her before she gets nerfed, everybody. Next topic on the docket. Does that kind of rhyme? It kind of does. I got to remember that one. Same Medivh, different pile. So a lot of people were saying with a rework to Medivh, okay, he's changed a little bit, but he's more or less the same Medivh. Puts out portals, it protects people. It just changes his viability a little bit, adjusts how you can play him slightly, but he's still pretty much the same Medivh. What do you think, Mystic? I'll give you the ball to start on this one.
Yeah, he's more or less the same. I think what they did with this one was, I believe in a step in the right direction, was they made it so that you can have more counterplay versus him, because the portals, it's no longer just the same duration at low levels, so he can't have portals up all the time, which means there is an opening that you can attack him where he won't have a portal up. The same goes with his Protect, where his Protect is on a longer cooldown, but it's a little bit stronger because they gave him talents for that, and I think that's really good. So overall, he has more power, but he needs more I guess targeting for it, where precision, that's the word I'm looking for. You need more precision, you need to know where to put it, and I think he's stronger overall if you're able to do that.
He's broken. He's over 40% win rate now. 42.9% win rate. He's up 4.4%. People can actually play him properly without having to worry about, that Medivh that's going to throw the game for you because of lack of damage.
If every hero has a skill floor and a skill ceiling, before everything was here. His skill floor was also really high, and then his skill ceiling was even higher than that. They kind of lowered the skill floor a little bit, and so it's a little bit more approachable for the average player. I will say I have not played any Medivh over the past day, but I've had a lot of Medivhs on my team and on the enemy team, and I will say that the increased Force of Will cooldown is very noticeable. You think it's going to come in to save you, and it's not.
I'd argue the skill ceiling has gone up too because of that Force of Will change. I found that I can't, I play a lot of Medivh, and I can't spam it nearly as much as I want to. I feel like I've got to hold on to it a lot tighter. I feel like the heal that it's been given, I'd much rather have the shorter cooldown than the extra heal, because I feel like it could mitigate more damage that way than healing someone up for a very small percentage of the damage that I stopped. But if you're really good at catching those big burst damage hits on a hero, you get big heals out of it. You can time it really well, so you've got that higher skill ceiling. People Mystic, you called it last week. People are liking Raven Familiar. Seems like a pretty strong talent. At least a lot of people are picking it.
I mean, machine gun ravens, like, who doesn't want a raven machine gun, right? So you just go through the portal and shoot them, go back to the portal, shoot them again. Like, if you put two portals, like, really close to each other and you just go back and forth, you got your raven machine gun right there, even though I do think mage armor is pretty busted.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that you get a lot more damage out of Medivh. At least that's what I was finding in the 3 games I think I played him last night. It's nice because I was complaining last week about his quest being 40 instead of 30, and everyone's like, oh, well, obviously you get it level 1, so it's got to be a bit harder to complete. But you can complete it really early now because of that, where everyone likes to team fight in the middle. You can get 10 to 15 stacks in the first minute because everyone just crowds up, generally just does a little dance in the middle. You can stack a ton of Master's Touch stacks and get closer to getting that machine gun Medivh. And there's a lot of power baked into his talent tree too. You get the Raven Familiar that you can get on auto attacking coming out of a portal. You get increased damage every time you hit an enemy with your Arcane Rift. You can also get auto attack increases after you hit someone with an Arcane Rift too, which I was finding powerful too. I was doing a lot more damage than I'm accustomed to with Medivh. I feel like he shifted a lot more towards an assassin with a little bit of a support, kind of like Zarya is like a tank with a little bit of support on the side too.
Yeah, I think he has certainly gained like a lot of damage with the rework. Although I feel like that is going to drop off a little bit, at least the stacking of the Master's Touches, because people will learn, hey, maybe I shouldn't stack this Medivh's quest as hard. Like, you're sitting there and then you're just having like the Medivh spam Qs on you. And let's just say you're a healer, right? And so you're just like, I'm just healing it up. I don't care. He can spam these Qs into me all day, but I'm just healing it up entirely. But what you don't realize maybe is that, hey, you gave him 38 stacks of Master's Touch, even though he technically dealt like net 0 damage to you. He still has 38 stacks now. He only needs 2 more to complete his stacks.
And you're out of mana now.
Yeah.
It feels bad if you don't complete that quest by whatever it is, like level 7 to 10. If you die, have to start over again. Good luck finishing that off before the game's over. Okay, next topic, Ana. Time to retire? She also had a rework, where you might argue Medivh and Sonya both had buffs. Ana, however, has tanked down the shitter, down 5.4%. I think her rework needs some rethinking. Roz, what do you think about Ana?
The thoughts are great. I mean, she obviously needed some palpable way of self-healing. That was her major weakness. And I don't know that it's enough. And at the end of the day, it does not change the fact, as Carbot's animation from this past weekend showed, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it totally encaptures the feeling of being an Ana player, because you think that someone is standing still. They've been standing still for 5 seconds. You go to click your Q on them, and suddenly on the 6th second that they were standing still, they choose to jump or dash or blink or hop or flip, and then they don't get healed. And so, kind of like the way that Medivh is a very team dependent character. Not only do you have to know how to play that character, your team also has to understand that character. I feel like Ana's the same way. You have to have empathy for the Ana player and understand, hey, I just need to be patient for a second and absorb the healing she's trying to give to me.
Yeah, and those self-heals they gave her, like you barely even notice them. Shrike does so little damage, getting the damage back as healing. And I feel like what they need to do, This is my master plan for Ana to fix her. They need to give, instead of just on heroes, they need to give it on everything baseline, I think, because you can quest into it on level 1. If you take a certain talent, you can get as a reward where anything you give Shrike to, minions, mercenaries, bosses, whatever, you get some health back. I think that should be baseline, and they should be double what you put out at least, because I feel like you still can't heal yourself well. They took away the fact that her grenade increases all sources of healing, so you don't have that bit where you can like throw a grenade on a butcher as he's branding someone to get even more healing back, or double up, the heals from your secondary healer. It just feels like they took away some of the stuff that was useful about her, and not to mention even the range on her Q from her questing talents. When I play Ana, and I played her a couple times yesterday to test her out on the live server, I noticed that I was, and it seems like everyone else is still taking the same build more or less, but they nerfed that build and buffed other things, but the things that they buffed didn't seem to be good enough to justify taking them. So now I'm playing Ana with less range, less healing, a tiny little heal off my Shrike, and that's about it. So I'm not surprised she's gone down so much, and I think they really need to give her some buffs in the days to come.
When you look at the changes, it looks like they were so afraid that the changes would make her too powerful, and so they, went ahead and pulled back on these other areas, just like they always do. They always raise one thing and lower another, and they were maybe too cautious this time. And so I imagine maybe within a week there'll be some adjustments there.
While we're on the topic of reworking Ana there, why don't we just make her Shrike, she just gains a percentage of the healing that she does, and give her back her grenade talent that amplifies healing. You can keep all the other nerfs. If Blizzard wants to nerf her to the ground with, some of the other nerfs, go right ahead. But I think those changes, if you wanted to change her that way, you should do that.
I just prefer some of the stuff they did. I think what they need to do is channel Macaulay Culkin from that Michael Jackson video where he cranks up the amp and hits the guitar and just blows everything up, because you need to really amp up the volume on the Ana. Give her healing back, give her some more give her something here. The numbers just don't seem to work. I mean, there's nothing wrong necessarily with her kit, but she just seems undertuned.
She doesn't, I mean, when I compare her in my mind to other healers, she doesn't have any mobility. She has a very conditional CC, and she doesn't have any self-sustain. And all the healers that are popular right now do all of those things. And if they don't have one of those things, then they make up for it in another way. And she kind of doesn't have that stuff in her base kit. So she's got to get buffed in her own way to make that compensate.
Poor Ana. She hasn't been in the Nexus for long, and she's already having some serious problems. Maybe she is getting too old, and maybe it is time to retire.
Maybe a rework's on the horizon.
Do you think that's like what she needs, just like some tweaking in numbers, Mystic, or like maybe just those small changes you mentioned before, or?
Blizzard needs to really decide whether they want to make her a double healer where she does have that healing on her grenade to improve other healers, or make her into a solo healer. They need to pick one, really. So
maybe just self-caster Q would be the solution.
Yeah, there you go. She stabs herself with a syringe.
Final topic on the docket tonight. Oh god, now I'm gonna start saying that every time. I gotta get out of that habit quickly. Is next hero hype. So Blizzard has confirmed through official sources that we are going to get at least some sort of teaser for the new hero that's coming out. They're not coming out next week, but the teaser's coming out next week, or some more information anyways. And not officially, at least not that I could find, but a lot of people are reporting from very reliable sources and people in the know that the next hero is going to be from the StarCraft universe to coincide with StarCraft's 20th anniversary. This has got to make you happy, Mystic.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the new, potentially new StarCraft hero. I mean, they could pull a 180 and say, we see that it was a StarCraft symbol, but it was actually a skin of something else. But I'm excited if it is a StarCraft hero.
So who do you think it's gonna be?
I don't know. I think because it's an anniversary for StarCraft, I believe it will be someone like famous. So maybe a main character of
Who
sorts,
was
but
the
I'm not sure who.
the main Terran bad guy that was like the prime minister president of the Terran Dominion? Manx.
Yeah, Manx. Yeah.
What about him? Because he isn't. I mean, there hasn't been much rumbling about bringing him into the Nexus. When you hear like new heroes coming out, everyone's like Deathwing, Imperius. You know, like one of the primevals from Diablo. You don't actually hear a lot of StarCraft hype for any specific heroes coming out, but Arcturus Manx seems like one of the few main plot line characters that's missing. That, or I guess Overmind from the original StarCraft.
I think it would be really hard to put Arcturus Manx in the game, really, because he was kind of a person who is scheming in the background. He's more of like a mastermind or something. So I don't know how they put that in a hero. Like maybe if they put him in a vehicle of some sort, like maybe a battle cruiser or something, that could potentially work. But if they put him in as, you know, just himself or something, maybe he would be like some sort of specialist that sets up traps or something, that does some benefits across the map, something along those lines. But I don't really see him as like any sort of hero that like fights at all, because he was very, you know, like kind of in the shadows scheming.
He's more of a plot device than he is you know, an actual character. But like
So is Abathur though. Right? He was,
but you actually see him doing things. Like you actually interact with him, and he, you know, he helps you customize your, you know, your Zerg, and you know we know what he does. I know a lot of people really want Phoenix, and there's lots of options. You know, do you do him as the Purifier? Do you do him as a Dragoon? Do you, you know? I think that'd be really cool. I saw a post on Reddit, or it was Icy Vein shared it, and it was from Reddit, and someone was saying that it might be Matt Horner and Mirahan, kind of as a Cho'Gall scenario, to where where they have to be picked at the same time, but they're two separate characters, so you can only draft them together, and then like they respond off of each other's abilities. So it was kind of interesting. I don't know if how real that is, but I think that'd be pretty cool. Either Phoenix or I know Matt Horner would be a welcome addition at the very least.
I can't believe I forgot about Phoenix. Like that's got to be the next one, right? Phoenix. How can you not have Phoenix in the game yet?
I like more Protoss.
More Protoss. I'm also a big fan of Protoss. It could be Gabriel Tosh. He was a Spectre. He's kind of another stealth hero, and I know this game maybe has enough stealth heroes, but he, I think, was very popular back when Wings of Liberty was released, and everybody was like really hyped for the character, because we don't know where he went. He just kind of disappeared, and you know, he was a very cool character, I'd like to say.
That's good. I know he had a lot of telepathic abilities too, so I wonder if they could somehow get that into the game as well. I don't know how you'd slot that in as an ability, but that'd be pretty cool. But the Dragoon, I think having Phoenix in as a Dragoon would be pretty easy, because we don't have anything with that kind of silhouette yet, right? Go ahead.
Or okay, so he dies when okay, so he's regular Phoenix, but when he dies, his next life is as a Dragoon, and then when he dies again, his next life is as a Purifier, and then it just rotates between three different heroes.
So you thought Diva 2 health bars wasn't enough? You get 3 health bars. This Phoenix / Dragoon / what was his was it Talendar? Or was that? Am I totally mixing things up here?
Yeah.
Because he had
that sounds right.
3 different
Job's done.
Okay, well that concludes trolling the Nexus. Guys, anyone watching, anyone listening, we really need feedback on this one. If you like this, I know it might be a little rough around the edge because it was our first try at it, but if you like the format, let us know. Send us an email at TheNexusTrolls @TrollsGG. Tweet at us at TheNexusTrolls. Come into our Discord, trolls.gg/Discord. Let us know what you think of this whole Pardon the Interruption, Troll Next, whatever we're going to call it segment, because we can make it a regular thing. But now that we've wrapped that up, we're going to get on to the next segment, which is one that Mystic's actually had some shout-outs to him for in Discord recently, and that's Mystic's Shakedown, which we haven't had in a while, Mystic, so it's nice to have it back again. So Mystic, here we go.
Mystic, I require service of you. I come to you as a friend, asking you to shake down this situation for me.
So Mystic, I haven't been able to say it in a while, but please shake down the situation for us.
Okay, so my topic for this week is effective training. Now, what if I told you that there's a way that takes less time than practicing for 10 hours a day to improve your Heroes of the Storm? Now, maybe you're saying I'm crazy here, and practice time always equates to, hey, you're gonna do better, and you're gonna win all those games. No, that's not 100% true. So playtime is important, but having time to review those games and process what you learned is also important. So this kind of method, there's less time required. It's true that if you just constantly play for 10 hours a day, you're going to improve. But it's that kind of a slower rate, I'd like to say, per game anyway, than if you use this sort of method. So if you take a game and you played it, let's just say you lost, and you're blaming your team. You're like, man, my team didn't do so hot, and we lost the game, and they just kept getting picked off, and they just kept throwing the game. But if you take the game, dissect it a little bit, and say, internalize it, hey, what could I have done better here? Maybe I should have called for this. When my team called for boss while the entire enemy team was up, maybe I should have pinged them off of it. Maybe I should have told them this was a bad idea. Then all these deaths wouldn't have happened. So you can kind of internalize it. You can't control other people to the extent that you can control your character, right? You can ping them or whatnot, but it's really up to them to listen or not. So you can only control your character. And if you take that time to review your games, and even if you're playing professionally, maybe some pros are listening, take the time to review those games with your team and make sure it's with your team, because it's a team game, right? And if you're playing professionally, well, everybody's got to be on the same page. And if you're Hero League, you can just do by yourself, right? So you take the time to review your games, and through each game, you improve more if you do this than if you just played 20 games of Hero League a day. And you just turned your brain off halfway through, and you're just grinding out Hero League, going, oh man, we lost this game because of this. Just on to the next game. But if you take the time to review your game, okay, we lost the game because of this, but what could I have done to win the game? Maybe I should have called for this, or changed my play style to better support the team instead of going for that one stray kill, stand back maybe a little bit and protect my support, protect my team, and maybe I could have won the game that way. So take that time to review your games. It'll take you less time than if you just grinded out 20 games a day.
But Mystic, I want to keep playing over and over again. It's just to bring up a sports analogy, it's like watching the tape, right? And any professional team, they've got time set aside to review tape, and a lot of the coaches and stuff will usually be the ones that do that and then give the feedback. But it's almost like we don't have coaches, right? As just your regular player. A lot of professional teams don't even have coaches too. So I guess if you want to have that level of improvement, you got to be your own coach and review your own tape. And it's something that is very tough to do, and I'm guilty of never really watched my replays unless I want to check out that sick play I made or something. But I can definitely see how you get out of cruise control by checking that out. So I think that's really good advice.
I mean, it's kind of like when you're writing a paper or something. You self-check it, but you can only self-check so much. So maybe you can bring in a friend or something, or some kind of peer review, some stuff you learned in maybe elementary school or middle school there, and have them also check the tapes, review your paper. You can have a little help there too if you want.
You just write the essay in one take, you submit it, you hope for the D-, and just got it there, right? Roz, I'm sure you love hearing that as an educator.
I proved a paper last night, actually, so for somebody.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I think we're going to end off the show here. So thanks, everyone, for listening to the Nexus Trolls Here's the Storm podcast. We stream this live on Twitch, twitch.tv/trollsgg, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Mystic, where can folks find you if they're trying to find you on this vast internet?
You can find me at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
And Roz, anything you want to plug? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Rozai Hots. You can find me writing for Trolls GG, and feel free to add me in game. I'm in the Trolls GG chat channel. So
yeah, you had a very successful article that you just finished up on reviews of the or reflections on the Western Clash, to one of the most successful articles I think you've written to date too. So congratulations on that as well. Everyone should check it out. Thank you. And if you're looking for me, you can find me at DazHots on Twitter. I want to thank all our patron supporters, particularly our chieftain, Super Dave, for pledging his support to the Trolls. If you like the show and you're looking for a way to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/TrollsGG. And if you pledge enough, you also can be a chieftain just like Super Dave, and we'll give you a shout out at the end of every show. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find those podcasts online. We're likely there. And if we're not, please tell us so we can put ourselves there. And finally, you can visit our website at trolls.gg/NexusTrolls to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TrollsGG. I said finally, but I lied, because for announcements of the show and general Here's the Storm News, you can also follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls. You can follow our network at TrollsGG. And if you want to hang out with us in Trolls Community in-game, you can /join TrollsGG in-game, or you can join our Discord channel, trolls.gg/Discord. And for those of you that have been around for a while, we're going back to our original outro music. The reason we went to a custom one probably about 40, 50 episodes ago was because Twitch started muting our streams, because it's technically copyright infringement or whatever you want to call it. We don't have a license to it, but you didn't hear that from me. Well, actually, you did hear from me, but whatever. Not enough people listen to the show that I'm that concerned. So everybody...
Please no Bannerino.
Yes. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
'Cause I'm TNT, I'm dynamite, TNT, and I'll win the fight, TNT, I'm a power load, TNT, watch me explode.
And I miss playing that at the end of every episode. Have a good night, everybody.